So welcome to the Node.js N-API Team meeting for November 25th, 2019. We'll start with our regular agenda, which is to go through the milestones after any announcements. So does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Nope, not I.
Okay, let's then dive into the meeting. I'm going to share milestone 11. So the first one on the agenda is, do we need some additional async worker variants? We did talk about this, and there's a PR open for the async progress queue worker, which I think is the only other one we think is left. I can see that sort of working through the process. So is there anything specific we need to talk about?
I think not yet.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, thanks for working on that, and we'll just let it work through in the issues. Okay, next is on the list is the workshop. Jim or Nick, who wants to start off first?
I can go first. I've posted some narrative for the for context awareness, and I was hoping we could take a look at that briefly. There should be a link on that table of topics.
Up at the top?
Towards the middle. Let's see, where is it? Maybe farther down. There should be a status table. There it is. Okay. Yeah, and there's a link there for context awareness. So these were the two topics that I could find that were related to context awareness. I want to make sure they apply, and I want to make sure I've covered everything that we want to cover under context awareness. So the two that I have are the multiple loading, where the code wants to be able to allocate memory for each instance when it's loaded, and then the other has to do with the cleanup hooks. Are those two topics applicable, and are there other topics that need to be covered under this?
I'm checking. Okay, that's good. You should also mention that an add-on can be unloaded now, whereas before it was strictly monotonic. They show up and they never leave. But now it is actually possible for them to leave if an add-on is not added to the main thread, right? So if it only appears on secondary threads, and you close all the secondary threads, then the add-on is actually physically unmapped from the process.
Okay, so that's separate from cleanup hooks, because the cleanup hooks could trigger, if you have multiple workers using it, the cleanup hooks could trigger, but not this unloading, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So this happens automatically, Gabriel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ref counted, so if it goes to 0, boom.
Okay.
And then what does the module owner have to do specifically? Like, it's good. These other two sections are like, hey, here, do this.
The most important concept to get across, I think, is that modules are no longer singletons. They need to be completely self-contained objects. And the most important implication of that is that global static data must not be used.
Yeah.
So that's because then basically I think the progression here is that I can't use static variables. Where am I going to put my stuff, right? And then we tell them, okay, well, you can pass data to the functions, data which you can then remove using cleanup hooks, right? Because each function accepts a void star, right? And then you can attach that data either to the function, you can attach it to the exports, or you can attach it to the environment using a cleanup hook. Or if you do not wish to support N-API 10, then you can use the instance data. and then you know you have an instance data which you can retrieve from the environment, and then that is your global static data.
Mhm.
So you can use n-API get instance data and n-API set instance data.
Yeah.
So that's
So I guess that section needs a for 10 and later.
For
Or 12
and
and
later. Yeah.
Okay, because yeah, it'd be important, I think, to call that out. And then to
Okay.
kind of say the alternative, how do you do that
Yeah.
alternative?
You have. Oh yeah, I see. You have to do add an example using n-API set instance data and n-API get instance data.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so you have that.
Yeah.
Right, and so I am trying to get the data backported to 10, because if it gets backported, then we can have this instance data experimental, though it may be on all LTS versions pretty soon, because 8 is going to drop off the table. And when we have that, then I was actually thinking about adding like an add-on class to Node add-on API, which basically means like, you know, your init for your add-on will consist of like, you know, my add-on : new, or return my add-on : new, and then that will return either the exports that was passed in or a completely new object, just as it does now. But all the methods will be class instance methods, meaning that they have the this, which is an instance of the of your add-on class, meaning that all your variables that you need quote unquote static can now be member variables of this class. And the instance can be stored using n-API set instance data and n-API get instance data behind the scene.
Yeah.
I think once we get that, we probably want to think about an n-API 6 too, right?
Yeah, because
right, like
we
if
have,
you get it back to 10, and then, you know, if this is important enough, it's worth having like an n-API 6 which is supported in 10 and 12.
For sure, yes. And we also have BigInt now, which has been sitting in experimental for very long because of 8. So once 8 drops off the table, BigInt will be very much a candidate for being marked as
Right,
stable.
so we could do n-API 6 in January that would have both of those as.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But of course it needs to get backported, and so that the backport PR is still going on.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, that definitely worth mentioning, that add-ons can now be removed and unloaded completely. So you know, using even using like pointers to static data is not safe, because if the add-on gets unloaded and some of its JavaScript objects are still in scope, then if they contain pointers by way of n-API wrap to static items, then those pointers will be invalid.
Yeah.
Because the library gets unloaded.
Right. Okay.
And when those modules are automatically unloaded, do the cleanup hooks get called? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the cleanup hooks will have potentially be called multiple times, once for each worker that was using it, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, no. A cleanup hook will only get called once because it's attached to a worker, right? So there's basically a sort of a bracket on bracket, right? There's module init, in which if you register cleanup hooks, then those will be called on. They are essentially the module exit, as it were. You know, so the cleanup hooks are the exit that corresponds to the module init.
Right, but for what I guess I was trying to understand is, I've got 3 workers. They've all used the same module.
Yeah.
When the worker ends, we should get a cleanup hook firing for that particular.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but each one will fire with different data, right?
Right. Yeah. So exactly, they'll each fire with different data.
Yeah.
But the cleanup hook firing doesn't mean you're necessarily about to unload the module itself.
No, that's right. That's correct.
So there's not really a link between the cleanup hook and the module being unloaded. It's that.
No, yeah. The thing is, though, you need not worry about the module being unloaded from the process if you don't use static data. Right. So then essentially, the cleanup hook is all you really need.
Right. So I think, but it was kind of like it's probably worth explaining it in terms of like, don't use native data. And one of the reasons that, you know, even like it may be the module itself may or may not be unloaded on you, but that even if that didn't happen, it wouldn't matter because you'd be colliding across multiple threads
Exactly.
anyway.
Yes. Yes. So yes.
And then
True.
there's these two things that help you manage that, which is the cleanup hooks,
Yeah.
and then in later versions this set
Instance
instance data. I think it would be worthwhile, like you mentioned, what your alternate recommendation would be on earlier versions. It'd be good to describe that in here as well.
Right. So okay. So then the three mechanisms, the latest and greatest, quote unquote, is the instance data. A slightly earlier version is cleanup hooks, and then available since N-API 1.0 is well, actually I shouldn't say that. Not since 1.0, but since 4, I think. When we
Where
added
the cleanup are the cleanup hooks in 4 or 5 already?
Yes, cleanup hooks are stable and they are available, I believe, even in 8.
So is there any reason we wouldn't just leave it at those two?
Well, cleanup hooks are a Node.js specific thing. So if you're worried about environments outside Node.js, then you may want to use just want to attach a weak reference to the exports object, for example. Because
I'm just thinking for this purposes, we are talking Node, and
yeah, okay,
it's less confusing to have less options, right? Like unless there's different reasons, it's good to just say.
Yeah, and people who have different reasons can probably approach us individually.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. Cleanup hooks should cover us.
Okay. So in that case, you allocate within your dynamically, and then you register you add an cleanup hook.
Yeah, basically you heap allocate from init.
Yeah.
You add a cleanup hook to make sure whatever you heap allocated gets freed. And then you pass that pointer around to your functions, to your async workers, to your thread safe functions, to everywhere. And then that basically becomes your global static data, that pointer that you heap allocated in your init function. And you need not worry about adding weak references and stuff because it's going to get cleaned up.
Right. And then the get and set instance data just makes it easier because you don't have to pass it around.
Exactly. That's right. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so I think we're in good shape on that one. The last one I need to get going is async context, and I am not clear the purpose of that. Why we would need that?
Yeah. So async context is basically it's just sort of like it's metadata for the async hooks. It basically says that I'm doing something async. I can't tell you what it is, but it's async. And so you do your bookkeeping knowing that this is an async thing. It could be a thread, it could be a file descriptor, it could be whatever. But the point is that this is merely the metadata for dealing with an async process. It lets Node basically keep the book straight, and set up the stack traces and the async hooks and all that. So you can think of the async context as the outer shell around like async worker. So async worker is an async context plus a thread pool thread. And for example, thread safe function is an async context plus plus a what is that called, a UV async T plus a mutex plus a condition variable. But basically the async context is the outer wrapper that tells Node.js that this stuff is async, it's not sync. That's all. It's just metadata.
But I guess I'm looking at the example.
I have just noticed that async context is not copyable. So if it's intended to be used in async operations, so if it's not copyable, how do we promote it to the just pass it around, and so we can use it later?
I don't know if you need to, right? my understanding is that you just wait. Let me see. Yeah, because it's very thin. It doesn't do much.
Yeah, I think it's just that for async hooks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
For async hooks, you need an you need a context.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
the context should be scoping the whole async thing. So since the async things have not ended, we might need the context later for the make callback. So as in the documentation.
Yeah, I guess the only place you need it is for N-API make a callback, right?
Right. We have, so the context might be created for the at the initialization point. So we have the make callback at the very later time. So might not be in the same scope of the object lifetime.
I'm wondering if we've got the wrong name here. New workshop sections, async context. Like, do we need a workshop on async context?
That's what I'm wondering.
Like, it's a small piece that's,
Yeah, would a user typically use it directly, or is it just
It's a fairly advanced usage. So I think if somebody uses async context directly, then they know what they're doing. So I'm not
Okay.
sure if they really need a workshop.
okay?
You know?
yeah, that would be my take. Like, let's,
Yeah.
Okay. All
and
right.
it's, yeah,
Okay. Very good. Then that means the resources can go to the other topics to make them better. Okay.
and I think that
So,
makes sense too. So,
okay, I will take that off. Okay. So okay, I feel we're making good progress.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I started working on the example for the thread safe function yesterday, but ran into a little problem, so I didn't get as far as I wanted. But hopefully I'll have something, hopefully today or tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay,
For
anything?
yeah,
so go ahead.
I'm continuing to select new native modules to add our list. That's it. This is what I'm doing about the workshop.
Okay. In terms of the list, you know, you think we have a pretty good number?
Just for now we have about the 35, 30, yeah,
Okay.
35. So
Yeah, that seems like more than enough to me. Like,
uh,
not saying don't add more, but I'm just saying that that's probably a good enough number that if that's all we got, we'd be okay.
yeah, okay.
So that's good. But yeah, the more the better, but still, it's good to know we're not like 3 or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, anything more on the workshop we should talk about? No, okay. SQL8 ports, I think.
Yeah,
mentioned.
no progress there
Nope.
this week, Michael.
Yep. Okay. Burn down list of issues raised. So are there any issues in either of the repos that people think we should bring up and talk about?
I have a couple, but Nick, go ahead and then I'll do mine.
Yeah, I have an issue on the Node.js API. The number is just a second. 605.
Okay.
Okay, here this guy are proposing to use string view instead of string to some of our some of our some methods exposed on exposed by our API. But the question is that there are many methods, and string view could be used only on C++ 17, and we need to check if what version of C++ is currently used, and then enable these methods, these new methods. So he want to know what do we think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I invited him to the meeting, but yeah.
The inline would be okay, but the header would not be, right? Because we have lots of places where we have standard strings, and then if he wants like an additional variant with string view, right? Then the nappy.h is going to look fairly bad because it's going to have lots of if-defs, right? But at least we can do the implementation in like I don't know, like a nappy nappy-inl dot cpp17.h, you know, so we could do that cleanly and then include that only if we have C++17, but we can't do the header cleanly because we can't amend class definitions once we've made them, right? So
yeah, okay. So you are saying that this is only possible on the implementation side, but we cannot check in the nappy.h.
Yeah, we can't have a separate include file, like a separate header file, you know, with like the public header file. We can't have that, a separate one that only gets included if you have C++17, right? Because we're sort of poking into individual classes and adding a method to the class or not adding the method to the class, depending on whether it's C++17 or not. So it's a little hard to do that, but on the implementation side, in the nappy-inl, we could do that. Like we could do that the same way we do the deprecated, right? We could just add another file called C++17. So that would be okay, but the main header file would still get cluttered a little bit with all these different variants. It's already pretty cluttered because we provide lots of convenience variants. But I'm not saying let's not do it. I'm just saying this is one of the implications, and we can sort of limit the if-defs a little bit, but only on the implementation side.
I mean, I think he's suggesting something which doesn't create new method overloads,
doesn't it?
So because it says now it's of course possible to create new method overloads for each single one that currently takes a constant string.
Yeah.
But that's quite a few locations. Also going from 2 to 3 string-like types would mean an explosion in the number of method definitions that take 2 string-like. So I think he was suggesting something else, wasn't he?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good implication.
So, but that's the part I don't quite understand, is like, how are we avoiding this explosion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the types, if one can be reduced to another, right? Like if you know,
right, like the string view, basically, if you pass it a std string at, you're okay.
Yeah, if that's the case, then they would be alternatives to one another. Right. So then yeah, then we'd have, then every definition that takes a standard string would basically be an if else and if else and if for each
one.
one.
Could you do it through macros though? Replace that std : string at with string type and then have that
yeah,
have one if, right? That might make it at least a little cleaner.
true. Yeah, we could. Yeah, like, I don't know, like define string method or something.
Yeah, exactly. String parameter. I think that
Right.
would at least make the code look a little cleaner. The concern I wonder still about is, I guess if they're writing code that depends on C++17, you're not guaranteed that whenever your modules get installed, they have a compiler that will support 17, right?
Well, presumably they know their install base, so
Right.
that's supporting it, right?
I'm just wondering if we should have something that makes it like opt-in, so that you don't accidentally start to use things that will be.
Oh yeah, okay.
You start to use these because it works on your compiler, but then you don't realize that, like, well, wait a sec, most people don't because I think we've tried to keep our well, and we test as well, like we test with compilers which the Node versions are built with.
Yeah, and it depends on the compilers that you have, because even if your compiler supports C++17, but by default it uses C++14. It's a case on my Linux machine, for example, and you have to set the flag on your binding G or your CMake file to enable C++17.
On the other hand, if you're distributing binaries, then you're fine, because then the only compiler that matters is the one on your machine. Everybody else gets the binary. So
yeah.
So there's that, and we don't really know the use case, and we have to cover both of them basically.
Right. That's what I was just saying. Like, I think in my opinion anyway, we want it to be guarded so that you don't accidentally start to pick it up.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute though. Like, but like if it works for you, right? Like if we're guarding with the CPP flag, right? The CPP version flag, then it'll, well, I guess the only change there is, well, basically we don't want to say, if this flag is on, then build with CPP 17, otherwise don't.
No, it was like define an API allows C17.
I know, but basically the way that would be implemented is if N-API allows C17 is on, then if you are on 17, then use it, otherwise don't. So the if, else, and if will only be done if you
right, like
C17.
you can use the C17 compiler, but you can't use the C17 dependent. The signatures won't be there.
If you've opted out, you mean?
Well, yeah, like basically by default, we would only have the signatures there are today, right? So
yeah,
that would work with any compiler. Well, any compiler above the minimums that we use to build Node in the first place.
Yeah.
Then if you turn this on, it would actually change the signature, and our understanding that the signature would end up being, you could now use a string view or what was there originally.
So basically what we will have is where is that preprocessor value that is present in C++17? So like so we would have hash if version greater than whatever 2017 whatever, I forget what the directive is.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Like hash if __ C++ greater equal 2017 03L and defined N-API allow C17. That would be our preprocessor directive for using the updated signatures.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if
Yeah.
either of those is missing, then we use the existing ones.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that just means that you have to consciously make the difference.
Yeah. And then you have to have the right compiler once you've made that.
Yes. And in theory, if you've done that, you're now tying your native module will only compile, right?
Yeah.
So you've made the choice. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm actually opting into using these versus like accidentally using them, and then you find out, wait a second.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then, yeah, you opt in, and then you still leave. It still works for people that don't have it because although you've set N-API allow C17, the other value will not be set for those people
Right.
that don't have the newer compiler. Okay.
Yeah, like unless you actually define that option, everything just works like it is today because it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then if if you do define this value, you're opting in, and well, you better have C17 or it's not going to work.
No. It is going to work. It is going to work, right? Because it's this and that. So.
Right, well, yeah, but if you try and use an STP,
Oh, I mean, yeah.
right?
Of
Yeah,
course.
But if you don't, you can still, you can still have the higher compiler define this value and not use any of the new types, and everything will still be fine too.
Right. Yeah. But if your code base now contains stuff that will not compile on an older one, then you're out of luck.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The emperor sounds good.
Okay, so basically it would be any other concerns that we have over that, or like hopefully that define makes it so it's not too ugly.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm still operating under the assumption that this introduces like an alternative rather than additional signatures.
Right.
So then I guess string view in C++17 can also be used with heap allocated strings, I guess. Pass them into a string view, and it's basically like a constant standard string. So then
let's see, string view.
Yeah, it's a feature they introduced on C++17 and provide good performance because you always obtain a view of your string, and you don't need to create a new string. So continue.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and it's not on the heap either. You can point to like
on the stack.
Like
on the stack, and then for operation like substring, it's very very fast because it's a constant, no, the in terms of complexity.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not linear on the dimension of the dimension of the string. Yeah, length of the string. So it's an optimization. But yesterday I was thinking to this, and yeah, it's okay for me. But maybe there are other things that we can optimize using C++ 17, and maybe this work could be a part of a big task. And maybe I don't know if in the future, okay, in the future we need to provide two different API. I don't know, one for modern C, and then another for like what we have now.
Yeah, sooner or later it's going to be like that.
Yeah, but for now I'm good with these improvements. So
okay, so is that what I've got there in the box reflect what we were saying?
These standards, they advance, right? We be getting ever newer C++ standards, but they still haven't introduced the ability to sort of define a class in multiple places and resume the definition of a class like you can do with a namespace. If they gave us that, then it would be a lot easier to manage all this, because then we could split both the public header and the implementation header. So maybe this is something we should suggest to the friendly folks who move these standards forward.
okay.
But anyway, it's just a thought.
Okay, so does okay, so I'll comment that on there. Any other ones? Any other issues?
Yeah.
This person wants the next one.
The next release, the 5.7.0, I set all the things for the new release, but we have a problem on the CI, and I don't know how to solve because now we have this problem that say that there is not enough memory in
so let's see. So is that this one right here?
Yeah, it's happened for every version of Node.js, Michael, now on AX.
Okay. So what is?
Not this. Now we don't have this problem. You need to.
The CI. Let me.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the ones. Is this even the one?
Yeah, it's the last one, and you can see that for every version node, we have the same problem on AX, and it's about the. Yeah, there is not enough memory available now. This is the error, but I think that is an infrastructure error. I think.
Right. Is this always like? I wonder if this is on multiple machines. So this is BE2. I wonder. I'm just gonna see GitHub. CI. Nope, not that guy. No, test commit AIX should be somewhere. Test commit. So why? I don't quite get is how the other ones are running. Okay, so that's BE3. Let's see what happened here. Yeah, okay, so no, that's a different thing. I just want to see if the same failure is happening.
Okay.
On like on other jobs, it's probably because that looks more like a, like you said, it doesn't look like anything related to.
B2. It's another error here.
Yeah, I think I think if we disable BE2 for now. So CI. Where are we? B-2. I'm going to disable this one. Come back and we'll just see if this is CI. Let's just kick off this one. So which one you're like, we'll try an 8 anyway. And actually, we don't need to do everything, do we? Actually, I'm just gonna do it all. We'll just see if this passes, then it's almost certainly related to the machine.
Yeah, but it never arrived at this point. Yeah, it surpassed.
So
Okay.
yeah, so if you can just rerun them.
Yeah, after
yeah.
like you said, I restart all the jobs, and if it will or if it's all okay, I will publish.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm just going to, I just want to go back and say, I'm opening an issue basically to say, okay, so I'm going to, the offline reason, sorry, I'm just, so I don't forget, I want to say why it's disabled, the reason, and okay, come on. Sorry, one last thing, and then I'll. Okay, sorry. Okay, so that's good. Any other issues we should talk about? Let me go back to.
Yeah, I have a very interesting one that I'm very excited about, and that's 602 in Node.js N-API, if nobody else has
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Wait, is this the issue? There's this person also submitted a PR.
Yeah.
Yes, there. Oh yeah, 604 is the PR, 602
Right.
is the issue. Yeah, this is really cool. It basically lets us avoid allocating stuff in order to create these our function callbacks. So this person sent a PR against object wrap that introduces instance and static methods which do not need to heap allocate their callback data, because the function pointer is passed as a template parameter, and so that doesn't need to be stored on the heap. And the instance, which is the native context for the method call, can be retrieved using unwrap. And so you need allocate nothing basically in order to create these functions. So
Okay, so it's a
this is
net
pretty
new
cool.
addition, like, so it adds
Yes.
new versions of the existing functions.
Yes, where instead of passing the function as a parameter, you pass it as a template parameter, and then because of that, you can avoid allocating these structures that we use for translating the N-API function signature, the core N-API function signature, into the Node add-on API function signature. So you can create the callback info on the stack, which we've already doing, but you can call the function without having to retrieve anything from the callback data, because the function is being passed as a template parameter, so it's all static.
Right.
And done at compile time. So the resolution is done at compile time rather than at runtime, which is
Is
great.
there any risk of people mixing one set type with the other type?
Not unintentionally, I don't think, because these new methods require that you pass a template parameters, whereas the old ones do not.
Okay, so like you couldn't accidentally use one when you're wrapping and the other one when you're unwrapping or something?
No, very unlikely. Yeah, no, I don't think so, because the method, like the callback that you add, like the N-API core callback that you give is being sort of like it's being instantiated on the spot. And so, I mean, statically, mind you, but on the spot, like, it's like when you make a call to a templated function, it actually creates the function in the same compilation unit. So that kind of thing. So for each one of those, it actually creates a new function at compile time. So you should be fine. And then that's the pointer you're passing into core and API.
Right. I'm just wondering if there's any way to force people to use just one style or the other.
Well, for backwards compatibility, we want to support the old one. And I mean, these are new signatures that we support. So I mean,
it's just coming to mind, like, is there, like, you can only use one or the other, but not both, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it will, like, if you write your code, right, and you say like instance method bracket something something, then it will use the old one. It'll
right.
So I mean, the compiler will resolve this for you, and there is no doubt that you're using the old one, because if you are using the new one, you cannot say instance method bracket. You have to say instance method tag, and then bracket. So
right. Yeah, I'm just okay.
It's really great though. Like avoiding these memory allocations is an absolute bonus. And actually, sorry, go ahead. No.
I just wondering if there's any, like, you could have a define which would enable the new ones and hide the old ones, right? So you'd actually only be able to use one or the other, but I don't know if that makes any sense. It's kind of like an opt-in deprecation, but then it hides. The only problem with that is that by default that would have to be so that you don't see the new ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
not great. So
yeah, you'd have to opt into the new ones, and that we really don't want that.
No,
I think, right? Like, we want to make the new ones available. But in terms of deprecation, yeah, that's one of the implications. Like, the old ones should be deprecated, should be phased out eventually. So
should they be moved into their, or does this PR move them into the deprecated?
No. This PR merely adds the new ones, and I just commented, I believe, on this PR that we should phase out the old ones, and I suggested sort of a timeline for it. I think it's down here. Yeah. So actually, maybe we should think about, like,
I see that's your comment right there. Yes.
Yeah, Lucas has already expressed approval for the second less aggressive approach, which is to just mark them deprecated into docs for now, and then in 3.0 we move them into NAPI null deprecated, which means they'll still be on by default, and then in 4 we would remove them, if even.
Yeah, exactly. Removing completely, we can discuss later.
So okay, but when you say move to deprecated, do you mean doc deprecated or header deprecated? Because I was thinking move to header deprecated in 3, meaning that it becomes eligible for causing it to disappear using NAPI disable deprecated. So if we just doc deprecated,
yeah. So no, I'm happy to have them, like, if you've defined the disable deprecated, like removing them completely is where I get a little more concerned, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But if you've defined remove deprecated, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but if you've defined NAPI disable deprecated right now in your module, right, and we move these to deprecated, then all of a sudden they'll disappear from under you, right?
Yeah,
so
that's an
that's
interesting.
That's why I'm thinking we should mark them as deprecated in the docs first for one major version, and only then should they disappear from under you.
Yeah.
Moving to deprecated header requires the additional code change in the wild add-on case.
No,
So
not in the new add-on case. But if you have an
add-on, we have added the NAPI enable, like the enable the deprecated header.
Right, but my concern is that currently the meaning of NAPI disable deprecated is only to remove the leaky property descriptor signatures and the leaky function signatures. That is the meaning of NAPI disable deprecated today. If we expand that to include the removal of the non-templated class definitions, then those folks that use the non-templated class or class method definitions will all of a sudden find themselves having to change their code, right? Whereas if we do a doc only deprecation, then we will give them a heads up for an entire major version saying, yo, you better change your signatures if you want to continue using disable deprecated, because we're going to shove this into the disable deprecated bag.
Right.
So
I mean,
it's kind of a heads up.
It's an interesting one where, like, maybe we need to have, disable deprecated 1, deprecated 2, or something like that. Probably a better name, and then disable all. So right, like, disable deprecated could be like just remove them all, and then otherwise we could have point in time so that every time we add something to it, you can choose to move up, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's about, like, writing your code. So if you're going to say, okay, now I'm going to update my code and now I don't want to go backwards, and you want to pin it, so it could be like disable deprecated Nov 2019. And then when you did it, you could update it. That it would be.
Yeah. But we cannot use disable deprecated for the inclusive one, because that's out the door already. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, having one that includes the old one and adds more stuff makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that would be my preference. Like, move them in there, but have a new guard, which is like, and then that'll be our pattern moving forward.
Sure. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, and then those people won't be affected, and they can choose to to move up. Yeah.
And we should probably add some doc on, like, what our deprecation, like how we're doing that, what that pattern is. But
so basically this would be like the opposite of the N-API version, right? It's the stuff that's going out rather than the stuff that's coming in.
Yeah, exactly. You can, like, what deprecation level do you want to be?
Yeah.
Do you want to be clean for, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so then I guess I can move them to the header under the new flag.
Right. Not affected, but people can opt into the higher. Does anybody have an idea, like, you know, how we should name that?
I'm good with, yeah, November 2019 is good. Or just 2, 3, 4, that kind of thing is good too. So we have like, currently we have NAPI disabled deprecated, right? So if we have NAPI disabled deprecated 2 or _2, that's fine.
Be to use, okay.
Maybe we should use 0 to, you know, just in case somebody does a grep and sort or something, you know, because
Right.
then if we have 10 levels, then it's going to get sorted all wrong. So we should have at least 2. And if we're really optimistic, we should have 0, 0, 2.
So I'm just writing. So deprecated 1, or is it that do we have to define it to a level so that it can be like a level check?
Well, no, I mean, we can call it anything we want, right? So the relationship will be defined not by its name, but rather by the way we nest the if defs,
Right, yeah, okay.
right? So basically it'll be like if def NAPI deprecated 1, then define NAPI disabled
Right.
deprecated. So
Right, okay.
so that will create the hierarchy.
Right, so basically it's like, in this case, we'll use NAPI underscore deprecated underscore 1.
Well,
We'll
it's actually NAPI disable deprecated.
Okay, disable deprecated, okay.
Yeah.
And we'll make, along your point, that NAPI disable deprecated will map to NAPI disable deprecated 0.
Sure, yeah, I mean, we can define that gratuitously.
And then NAPI disable deprecated all will map to the highest current level.
Okay, yeah.
That way, like if you want a choice to do it all, you can just, and you want to get hit with the newest stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing though, right? Like if we give this all thing, then people who choose all will again find stuff disappearing from under their feet.
But they'll have made that choice.
Sure, yeah.
I guess the question is it, if they make that, is it worth providing versus too risky to provide? Maybe it's better not to provide it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I mean, if stuff becomes deprecated after you've chosen level 5, then you're still fine, right?
Right, except that, say, for example, in your CI, you might want to choose all.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then you basically find out immediately if you're using something that's deprecated.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good concern. Yeah. Okay.
So basically, you know, if you choose all, if you want to like your CI, you that when you actually ship, you probably want to use the actual number though.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. True. Yeah. So yeah, you want to have the option to be pedantic. Yes.
Right. Okay. So I'll type that in.
So the NAPI disabled deprecated O should not be recommended for the not be recommended for using a like not a CI environment.
Yeah, it shouldn't be what you use to ship.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, ideally, the outermost and most pedantic one would be called NAPI disabled deprecated, but unfortunately, we've used that up to mean the least deprecated of all. which
Right.
is level 0. And that's for historical reasons, but that's why we have all. We'll introduce all.
Yeah, it all seems fine because that gives you specifically, like it tells you.
Yeah. Yes. Disable all the things.
Right. And it's always all.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's changeable, right? So we'll have to make sure that in the docs, like in the comments, that will be very clear that like you choose that, you
Yep.
will get, it will change underneath you.
Yeah, we may even suggest that it's good for CI.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we are a few minutes over, so any other discussion on that one?
Nope.
Any others that we absolutely need to discuss this week?
Just a few things in core, but nothing major, I don't think.
Okay, maybe we can talk about them next week then.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Okay, well then, thanks for everybody for coming. And
Michael,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, before we
Yeah.
sign off, when we scheduled this meeting, we knew that it would conflict occasionally with the security working group.
Right.
That happens next week.
Okay. Right. So, sorry, actually, I'm looking at the wrong thing, calendar. Right, so do we want to, we got several choices. We can skip, we can, okay, sorry, I'm still trying to get it. We can try and move it like up or down an hour. What would we prefer? Actually, I don't see the security one on the calendar. I'm still on the wrong day, that's why, sorry. Okay, yes, you're right. So we can try and move it to some other time or skip. Which do people think works best?
I'd obviously prefer later by an hour, but I can do earlier if needed.
Yeah, I could do earlier also if we wanted to bump it up.
I'm just
Earlier,
looking for
okay.
me.
I think Gabriel and I are the ones most affected on the early end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't do an hour earlier or later. I can do 2 hours later, but you can also just go ahead without me too.
So okay, but we can't go ahead on this channel though, right? Because it'll be taken
Well,
up.
yeah, I know I meant an hour earlier or later.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I don't know if an hour later is good for Nicola and Lucas. If it is, then I can host an hour later.
I could be attended. Yeah, 1 hour later.
Okay.
If
Nicola, how about you?
Could.
Yeah, it's okay for me, and I think that it's important for us because the next week I will travel, so yeah, it's important for the workshop stuff that
Yep.
we need to complete.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move it to be 1 hour later.
Yep.
And
Sounds
I'll
good.
keep an eye on the
Yeah,
off
it's
chance
okay.
the security working group one gets canceled or something. Maybe we can move it
Yeah,
back.
yeah, we can do it after all. Yeah.
Yeah. But yep, okay, I moved it in the calendar. That should, well, people will see it. So.
Okay, great.
Okay, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Okay, anything else?
Nope, I think that was it.
Okay,
Yeah.
talk to everybody later.
All
All
right,
right,
bye-bye.
talk to you later.
Bye.
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 Bye.